Recognize Ranking Member Scott for his questions.
Thank you, Chair Rosen. Mr. Cutié, can you talk to me? What was the response from passengers on the lifting of the mask mandate? Were they thought it was a positive, concerned? What was the response?
Well, I could thank you so much, Senator Scott. First of all, thank you for your leadership and thank you for the question. I can tell you that on the day that the mask mandates were lifted, we had what amounted to almost New Year's Eve type celebrations in our terminal. People throwing up their masks in celebration, not having to wear their mask anymore. So, and we heard similar reports from other airports around the country. So I can say that overwhelmingly, the lifting of the mask mandate was very well received, not only here at MIA, but I think throughout the country.
At MIA, how many jobs do you think are impacted by their testing requirement? How many on the international flights?
I would have to research that and get you that number back, Senator. I don't have that exact number, but I would be happy to get that for you.
So how long do you think, if we got rid of the testing requirement on international travel, how long before you get back to pre-pandemic levels?
Oh, I mean, I would say within the next 6 months, that would be a realistic number. I mean, we're at 80 to 85% of our pre-COVID numbers international, and we're leading the country in international travel. So if we could get those requirements lifted, I would say easily within the next 6 to maybe 9 months, we could get back to where we were before, pre-pandemic.
Ms. Barnes, I'm glad you're in the great state of Florida. I think that too often the answer to a problem is not having more government or having the federal government do more. It's actually government get out of the way and let the private sector figure this out, which they generally can do without a lot of government needs and without this burdensome regulation bureaucracy. So what are the big things that if government did right now, that the 3 things or 2 things, whatever you think, the big things they could do now that would dramatically change international travel?
So number 1, lift the pre-departure testing. Our data shows that if we were to lift pre-departure testing in June, we would be able to bring in 5.4 million visitors and $9 billion in spending to the U.S. This year, which is really critical. Expedite the visa wait time backlog. So right now we are seeing over 400 days on average for international visitors coming from non-visa waiver program countries. We need to set a metric, have the State Department pass those through in 12 to 15 days, enable some pilot, allow the pilot to go through where we can do video conferencing for renewals for visas, and also allow for the State Department to allow for visas for groups in suites so that they can all come in together, especially for business travel. So those are a couple of things. And then obviously we need to really make sure that to facilitate large conventions and trade shows, that's a focus of the Commerce Department, that they actually go out and try to get that business here in the U.S. Right now, we're at a competitive disadvantage without having an even playing field. And so it's critical that we eliminate that pre-departure testing, that we get the visa processing backlog under control, and that we go out and solicit business conventions and meetings to be held here in the United States.
Thanks. For each of you, what is inflation? How's that impacting your industry and your opportunities going forward? Mr. Cutié, you want to start? Then we'll do Ms. Barnes and then Ms. Newfang.
I think thank you, Senator. I think one of the biggest impacts to our industry, and when it comes to inflation, I would say it would be fuel costs. The impacts to airlines and the cost of fuel, which translates to cost for ticketing and travel. I would say that would be the number 1 impact.
Ms. Barnes.
So we have data that shows that inflation is the number 1 obstacle to travel right now. It's not COVID, it isn't other things. So it is inflation. So that's a challenge. We're still looking at a 2024, 2025 time horizon to get back just to the 2019 numbers. And the inflation is definitely the exacerbator in that. But if we could move forward on the things that I just mentioned and we didn't have inflation, then we really could pull up that timeline for recovery to 2023 or early 2024.
Ms. Newfang, inflation?
Yeah, certainly business budgets are always limited, so fewer trips if prices rise. So the price of fuel is really important. But it's also probably a really great time for us to focus on things like sustainable aviation fuel and looking at the blended tax credit, so that at this time of crisis with normal fuel and kerosene for jet fuel, that we can also focus on getting to a cleaner future by supplementing the kind of investment that we need to do on a public-private scale to get clean business travel back on the road again.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.